Welcome to the Kintsugi Heroes Podcast, where we share inspirational stories of everyday people going through different challenges and how they overcome them. Please be aware that the story you're about to hear may have moments of deeply felt emotions and personal experiences. If anything you hear has a triggering effect, please reach out to someone who can help keep you safe. If you love this conversation, we'd love you to like and share it with your friends so we can continue to share more inspiration and hope to as many people as possible. Now, listen up for our next hero story. This conversation is with Terry James. Terry wanted to become an archaeologist when he was young, but the war in Vietnam changed all of that, and he was conscripted into the Australian Army in 1966. He talks about his journey from that point on, the years of being in the war, and how that's impacted his life. It's a fascinating story, and for anybody who has never or ever heard of someone talking about their journey through being in a war and then having life challenges on top of that, it's really quite an interesting and challenging thing to comprehend. He has surrounded himself with amazing groups of people that have been his foundation and his support. So for me, this story is one that highlights the value of community and having, the community as your bedrock. I just really loved hearing about his story and how he opened up. So I know you'll enjoy this one with Terry James. Hello, here we are. It's another episode. It's Kintsugi Heroes, and I'm here today with Terry James. How are you doing, Terry?
Getting older by the second, Evelyn, unfortunately.
Well, that must make two of us.
Yeah, that's right. I think we're all in that condition.
Yes, I think so. Well, I want to thank you for coming along and being open to sharing your story and spending time with me today. I know it's not always easy to share one story, and just want to honour you for being brave and courageous and showing up to share your story that'll help others.
Well, I've done this, not so much to this nth degree, but I have done lots of public speaking and lots of events, so I can feel free to chat about these kind of things. Especially I've spoken to mentoring men on one session in detail.
Well, we're keen as mustard, ready to dig in. I'm going to hand the mic over to you. Please take us back to the beginning. Where does your story start?
Well, my story starts on about 6:15 p.m. on the 5th of June 1947. I guess that makes me one of the early baby boomers. My mother was 29, my father was 40, so there's 11 years age gap. They met during World War II, married, and had me. And 12 years later, they had another baby, my sister Anne, who sadly I don't see very often these days, and she's under different circumstances, which I won't go into. So that's when I started, back in 1947, which makes me 75 now. Sometimes I feel 75, other times I don't feel 75 in the mind. I was raised a Catholic. I'm not such a good Catholic these days. I went to St Patrick's boarding school in Goulburn, did the Leave Certificate there in 1964. I always wanted to be an archaeologist because I won the school prize for ancient history. I thought, what I'll do is I'll work for a couple of years, save some money, travel to England, go to Liverpool, go and see the Beatles at the Cavern Club, then Carnaby Street in London, all those fabulous places in the early 60s, and do that. So I worked for a couple of years, and sometime in 1966, I got this funny letter in the mail from the federal government that said, we want you for 2 years military service. So I was conscripted into the Australian Army, entered the Australian Army on the 4th of October 1967. And for 2 years, I was a soldier. Unexpected. I suppose knowing the things I know now, a year later, I could have got out of it if I wanted to, but I didn't. It was a thing to do in those days. I felt that it's some kind of duty, even though with hindsight, you look back and you think, yeah, really, was it? Was it the right thing to do? Was war right? Should we have been there in the first place? But that's what the world was in those days, and I had to kind of cope with that, okay. Well, I went through my recruit training down at Kapuka at Wagga, the Army Training Centre down there, 3 months recruit training. And that was tough, but I was fortunate. I'd been at boarding school for 3 years, so I guess that helped me interact with those situations I needed to look after myself in. It certainly was a tough time down there for 3 months. When you graduate from the recruit training centre in the Army, they give you 3 choices of corps you want to go to. And I was a bit lazy, I suppose, and I thought, I want to go to Armoured Corps, Artillery or Engineers. I was never really good at walking. So I applied for those, and I got infantry. None of what I wanted. They just wanted bodies for Vietnam, basically, at the time. So I was chosen in the infantry section, infantry corps, actually, it was called. Then I was sent to Singleton, the corps training in my army profession. I was then posted to the 5th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, which is based at Holsworthy. At that time, there were 9 battalions in the Royal Australian Regiment, and I was on the 5th. Our mascot was a tiger. I'm not sure if you can see the mascot here. It's a tiger with the 5th Battalion motto on it. I never got that tattoo until about 10 years ago when my granddaughter gave me a tattoo voucher for Christmas, which is quite strange to me. So, because they got little tattoos as well, and they said, Pop, you need some tattoos. I said, no, I don't. But they did, and I got that. I was posted to 5 RAR, where I served in Australia for 6 months, and then I went to Vietnam in kind of late January 1969. Spent there till October that year. I came home, and I was discharged from the Army after 2 years. I thought about staying on, but I decided not to. After that, I had to decide what to do. I wanted to be an archaeologist, but there was no money in archaeology at the time, so I thought, okay, I'll study something where there's good money, and I studied accountancy, which is boring, but good money. And I thought, one day I might get back into archaeology, but I never did. So I've always in my life, I guess since I left school, I've been in the Army, I've done accountancy, and I'm retired. So that's basically it. I still love to watch ancient history shows on Foxtel, on the History Channel, especially about ancient Egypt. It's my thing and drives my wife insane because she hates it and loves movies. So that's where my youth was. Some misspent. 3 years at boarding school. It was wonderful. I made some great friends. And then before I went to boarding school, when I went to primary school, I made a friend when I was 5, and I've got a photo of him at my 5th birthday party. So forward a bit to the Army, I get posted to 5 RAR at Holsworthy. I walk into the playground one day there, and who do I bump into? That friend who I hadn't seen for 10 years. And I've now known him for 70 years. Longer than anybody in my family, longer than my sister, who is kind of 12 years younger than me. So knowing someone for 70 years is a big thing, I think, and it makes me feel good to see him. And I'm going to see him on the 2nd of May at Warhaven to go for an Army reunion up at there. I'll be staying at Fort Macquarie, but we're seeing all the old mates. So, the Army was great until I went to Vietnam. Well, it was even good there because you make the best friends in the world after your family. The Army, or the military of any kind, Army, Navy, Air Force, but there's a saying in the Army especially that the Navy navigates by the stars, the Army sleeps under the stars, and the Air Force books 5 stars. So we always say that to the Air Force because it makes them feel a bit jealous and envious, But in the Army, I didn't want to be in the infantry. I wanted to be, riding around on a tank, a Centurion tank or something, or another personnel carrier. But now, I get to be so proud that I was one of the elite infantry soldiers of the Australian Army. I get to wear my lanyard, which is in the War Memorial display case of the RSL Club on the left-hand side. I get to wear what's called an infantry combat badge, and nobody else gets to wear those but infantry soldiers. I suppose you can say that because you survived. There was a few occasions when I nearly didn't survive. I went through some tough times in Vietnam. I was there for nine and a half months. The battalion was there for 12 months, but I had to come home because of my 2-year commitment was up. But really got some tough times in Vietnam. I was in Delta Company, which is D for Delta. We were based away from our main battalion unit. We were up in what we call SAS Hill, Special Air Service Regiment Hill. We were based up there, so we had a bit of privacy, which was good. We'd go out in operations for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. You're back in camp anywhere from 4 to 5 days, then go out again, depending on the operational time. You vary from anywhere from a week to 6 weeks. It was averaging about 4 to 5 weeks on the average. And I think if you look through the history of that war, you find that the soldiers in Vietnam spent more time on the front line than any soldier in any war that Australia's been involved in. It might not have been intense as the trenches in World War I, but it was certainly more time on the front line. So that's what we get to be told anyway. And that's what we pass to our friends and associates. So they know the true story. I had a couple of major circumstances over there. Well, obviously, I never got killed on many occasions. So I was very lucky to survive. I've been, ever since I got back when I was 22, I've been, felt good about the fact that I did survive and felt lucky. But there were 2 occasions over there where I really nearly didn't survive. One was called the Battle of Long Khan. That's the first place I killed someone. It's not a nice feeling, but you don't think about it when you do it. Shooting somebody in the back is what I did. And you just do those things. You sprung an ambush. In war, it's you or them. You just have to do what you have to do to survive. At the time, it didn't affect me, but it took a long time to actually get back to me that happened. The same operation, I lost a good friend who was killed. We used to have forward scouts, two forward scouts in each section, and you'd alternate. One day you'd be the scout, next minute the other scout would be in the front. So one day it was my turn to be up front. My friend said to me, "No," I said, "I'll take it again today." I said, "No, don't. It's my turn." He said, "No, I'll do it." Anyway, we walked into an ambush and he got hit badly. And he died 5 minutes in front of me after 4 hours. I couldn't get to him. So I've always felt a bit of survivor guilt because of that fact, He was a good friend, and sadly, he was due to come home the following week to be home for the birth of his first child with his wife. It was very sad. So circumstances like that make it tough. But you go on because you have to go on. It's kill or be killed in war, and that's what it's all about. Another incident was a battle called the Battle of Binbar, which is on the battlelines of the Royal Australian Regiment after Long Tan. Binbar was a village, a regional village, well known for its rubber plantations and processing. And it was a French village originally, but it was quite a big town by Vietnamese standards. And one day we got a call, our battalion got a call from the village chief saying they'd been overrun by the North Vietnamese in DC. Could we come out to help? I was on what was called, Delta Company was called the Ready Reaction Company on that occasion. Normally in a company of infantry, you'd have about 120 men. We had about 70 because people were away on rest and convalescence and R&R and wounded and R&R and doing courses somewhere. So we had about 70 to 75 men out of 120. So we were bundled into personnel carriers quickly and driven out there with support by helicopter gunships and Centurion tanks. And we spent 3 days house to house fighting in the Battle of Binbar, something we weren't trained for because we were trained for jungle warfare. And it was different, 3 days house to house fighting. Fortunately, I only lost one person. It was very stressful. I can't remember much about it, to be honest. I remember everything about my tour in Vietnam, but those 3 days of what I did. It was so intense that it really had an impact on me, but I hadn't realised for a long, long time. I try to think back now, and I can't remember a thing of what I did, apart from the end of it. We had to drag bodies into the central square, hundreds of bodies, what we call the enemy, PC, NVA, regular army. And it happened the day after my 22nd birthday. And I thought, this could be my last birthday. But it turned out not to be. I was very fortunate. I was very close on many occasions, but we survived. And that was what really got me going over there. House to house fighting, up close and personal with bayonets, that kind of thing. You don't see much about that in the press these days. But it was, and like I said, hundreds of bodies later on. I think they fought bravely, as did we. It changed my life. Not immediately. I got home from war, and I tended to put it out of reach of everything. I just conveniently forgot about everything. I was discharged. We came home. We went to North Head Army Depot where we were discharged. We had to come in every day for a week. They put us on parade, call our names off, and we could go away and then come back in the afternoon. That was it. And they, at the end of that period, they go in and sign a document, and they, instead of calling me Private James, which I was at the time, Mr. James, by an officer said, then you realise you're out of the army. What do I do now? Because prior to the army, I'd been working in the Department of Government Transport. I was working as a bus conductor for about a year, trying to save that money to go to England. The conscription ruined that. So I went back to there and I thought, don't want to be bus conductor again for a while until I work out what I want to do. So I went and worked in the bus depots doing revenue clerk, collecting all the money that they brought in, counting all that. I guess that led partly to my accountancy interests. So I did that, and it was. I decided I couldn't do that for much longer. What do I do? So I applied to join the Commonwealth Public Service, and I joined the Overseas Telecommunications Commission, where I worked for 11 years while I studied accountancy. Then over the years, I graduated from the Institute of Technology, which is now the University of Technology, and I started working in major corporate entities like Lightsabers Confectionery and whole pile of things like that. Cadbury's. I was headhunted to Cadbury's from there. And then I went to a number of building companies as well, kind of thing. Names called to me quickly. So I worked as an accountant for a long time, and I made my life. And I put everything military-wise to the back of my mind and forgot all about it. And then my best friend, who sadly served with me, but sadly died 11 years ago from lung cancer. He was my best friend, the best man at each other's weddings, and we saved each other's lives on a few occasions in Vietnam. He said, "Look," he said, "you're not doing very well. Why don't you go and see the Vietnam Veterans Federation at Granville and try and get a war service pension?" So I did. I went and saw them, and they were very helpful, and they brought everything back. All the memories came flooding back, good memories, bad memories, you name it. Kept working for a few years, and then in April 2000, I got apart at work. I was a financial controller for Paramount Pictures at the time, which was a great job because we had our own private cinema. We go and see previews of all the movies before they came out, and it was great, good staff. When I went to work one day, I said, "What am I doing? I can't do it anymore. I've lost what I'm doing, And so I had to retire, and I applied for a TPI pension through the Veterans Affairs Department. I got that. I was a bit of a wreck. It just all came flooding back all of a sudden. And that's what caught me off guard, because I wasn't expecting to do that. When I came back from Vietnam, my mother said I turned into a hard, cold person, which I think you've got to do. And when you're 22 and you're a hard, cold person, you think, is that real or not? But I think it was, because it changes you, or does that, no matter. In between all that, before I retired, I got married when I was 31, I think it was. Actually, she proposed to me, which is unusual. We got married, but it lasted 7 years, unfortunately, and she couldn't cope with the stress that I was going through at the time. So she was worried about Agent Orange, to kicking in with children and all that kind of stuff. So we eventually got divorced, and I lived a life of ride for a couple of years. I met the love of my life through 1987. We're still together. So that's great. But this, even going back further, back to Vietnam, I was, when you're in Vietnam, you get what's called R&R, rest and recreation, 6 days, 7 nights was. And I always wanted to go to Hong Kong. So I ended up going to Hong Kong. And I was there in July 1969 when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon. It was great watching that. I think they even had colour TV back then, back in 1969 in Hong Kong. So far advanced on us. It was great. 6 days and 7 nights, wonderful. We met a lot of Americans over there. Even in Vietnam, we didn't meet many Americans in Vietnam, but on one operation, we did. I know I'm clicking backwards and forwards here a little bit, but in Vietnam, the Americans were different to us. They did 6 weeks basic training and were sent over individually, essentially. We did a lot of training, we sent over as units, so we were combined, organised. Americans were kind of a bit different. Much as I love them, that they didn't even know Australia existed to a certain degree. When I was flying over to Hong Kong on R&R, I was sitting next to an American soldier after about half an hour on the plane. He said, we were chatting away. He said, "Oh, God." He said, "Do you guys in Australia speak English?" I said, "Nah, of course we don't, mate." So then that's the kind of thing we had. And we were a security company for one of their operations. Once they had a big unit called the Rome plows, big bulldozers. They put them out in the lines, stitch steel covers between them, go forward and knock down the jungle to get rid of the hiding places for the VC. And we were a security company for one of their operations for about a month. They were living in the rifle luxury in their base camp with the bulldozers. They had an ice cream factory in the middle of their base camp. Meanwhile, we were living on the perimeter, going and patrolling through the swamps and being de-leached every half hour, kind of thing, through leeches, So they had it great over there, but we had it pretty rough compared to what they had. But they were still nice guys, bit naive, but nice guys. And that's when I met this guy in the plane on the way to Hong Kong. I said, "Yeah, of course we speak English, mate. We speak better than you do." That was a nice guy. So I'm going forward again now, back to when I was married. She didn't want to have any kids straight away because of the potential of Agent Orange. Sadly, she had one abortion because she didn't want to have the child because of that problem. We were engaged at that point in time. We weren't married. So I was unsure whether I wanted the child then or not. And no, I so regret it now. So regret it now. But that's happened. You can't change history. Same as you can't change history about a war. So she had an abortion, and I ended up not having any kids of my own. So I got back to normal life, and at that point in time, I still put Vietnam behind me to a certain degree. And I started, all the friends that I'd made over there in the army, I'd given up on for years. Just hadn't seen anybody, even my best friend, Gary Smith, his name was. Very simple name, but not a simple guy, a lovely bloke. He got in touch with me and he said, look, mate, he said, you're not doing the best. You've got to go out and see the Vietnam Veterans Federation in Granville, which I did and saw them, and put the process through the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I was lucky to get that because I was falling apart at the time, had to give up the work situation, as I explained before. I didn't know what to do. But by that stage, 1998, I'd met my new partner, Lynn, and she was divorced, just divorced, 2 kids, Susan 17 and Stephen 14. And we've been together ever since 1987. Sue's 53 and Steve's just turned 50. So they're to me like my children, even though it was tough at first. I didn't want to try and replace their father because you don't do that. You don't come in that kind of stage at teenage and try and replace a parent. You're just going to be a friend, and that's what I tried to be. It was easier with Steve than with Sue because she was all set in her ways and she was a teenager and left school, and Steve was sort of school at that stage. But now, best friends kind of thing, and their children, I'm pop to their children. So Sue's got 3 children and Steve's got 2. Yeah, I'm pop to them. Yeah, I love being pop. Yeah, couldn't think of anything better in life than being a grandfather, even though not by blood, but by heart. Yeah, so I love them to pieces, and I think they love me to pieces too. So that's how it's been. What happened next? I started seeing a psychiatrist. I saw a psychiatrist every month for about 5 or 6 years. I gave that up a couple of years ago, but maybe even more than 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years, I think. I contacted my old army friends and remade those contacts again. I became involved in the RSL and ex-service organisations. I never wanted to be an RSL member from the time I got out of the army, but in about 1996, my best friend again, Gary, talked me into getting involved in the RSL, which I did. He's responsible for a lot of things. He got me into golf. I'll get into that in a minute. But so Gary said, you should become involved in the RSL, which I did. I joined the RSL. Then I got heavily involved, and then I got elected as honorary secretary of Hornsby RSL sub-branch for 5 years, and then I got elected as president of Hornsby RSL sub-branch for 5 years, which I gave up 3 years ago. So I was heavily involved in the RSL in New South Wales, and I was responsible for organising all the Anzac ceremonies. I was on Paul Fletcher's National Committee for the Centenary of Anzac, and I had one of my guests at one of my events was Ben Robert Smith, PC with it. We know that Ben's going through dramas at the moment, but, I think if the any veteran, you'll find that they support Ben rather than the politicians who try to get at him. So that's what I did, and for many years I was involved with the RSL, and to a certain degree I still am. It looks like I'm going to become an attendant at the cenotaph in Martin Place in Sydney. Hopefully that will happen in the next couple of weeks. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm just doing, I think I've got unfinished business. So we'll see what happens there. And like I said, there are things that really on my journey back that pulled me forward was meeting Lynn. It's been great. And she's 5 years older than me, but she's lovely. We just made for each other. I should have met her when I was 0. Really wonderful. So she gave me a new lease on life as well as a love in my life. And the family of hers is mine, which I love. So where I am now, I'm in a happy place mostly. I've given up seeing a psychiatrist, so I don't need to do that anymore. I've given up antidepressant tablets. I still had the odd nightmare. I had a major nightmare probably about 15 years ago when I had this really bad nightmare of a bayonet being thrust into my chest very slowly, very, very slowly, and I jumped up screaming in the middle of the night. I remember that vividly. I gradually wore myself out of those. I don't know how I did it, but I did. So I don't have those much anymore, but I have the odd dream here and there about military service. You can't be involved in a war which kills and be killed and not think about it for the rest of your life, I don't think. My time with the RSL was great. I was heavily involved in community events, like I said, my friend Gary, who passed away, he got me involved in golf 23 years ago. He said, I'm never going to golf. And I said, no, I'm good at golf. I was a squash player. Anyway, I went and played golf, and I stayed, and I still play there. I've been playing there for 22 years. Over those 22 years, I've been treasurer for 20 years. Everybody wants you to be treasurer when they find you a retired accountant. That always happens to be the case. So I play golf every week. I've had 3 holes in one over the years, and I'm very proud of that. I've still got a reasonably high handicap, but still had those 3 holes in one. So I play there every week at Fox Hills, which is about 7 Hills away, a long way from Astor where I live. But it's worth the trip because I love it. It's a great place to be. Like I said, my mother said I was a hard person when I got back. I think I've softened a lot now over the years with my involvement with Lynn and the kids and the grandkids. Yeah, I think they've helped make me a better person than what I was. I was never really in trouble. I just was I think Mum was right, a cold, hard person, you know. The sad thing about it was she died 12 years ago from dementia at 96. She didn't know me in the end, so I'd like her to think that she would have known me as a better person because of what I've done. My recollections and reflections on life are pretty good, I think. Dating more emotional issues. That's the thing, which I did for a long time. I didn't know I even had emotional issues until one day it kind of cracked, you know. But I got back into the army because you're sick and family. You'll never, ever lose the connection with army friends. Recollections. Look, over the years, I've given speeches at many schools and community organisations. I still give speeches at schools, even though I'm not involved as president of the RSO anymore. Over the Anzac period and Remembrance Day period and all those kind of events which are significant in school life. And I've always tried to tell the young kids these days that war is not good. It's started by politicians, it's fought by young men who commit their lives to a war. So they should do everything they can do to prevent future wars. Sadly, I don't think that wars are going to stop as long as there's humans on this world. You can always hope, can't you? You know, one of those things that I always try and convince young kids to do.
Sorry for the interruption. This is Ian Westmoreland, the founder of Kintsugi Heroes, and thank you for listening to this story from one of our amazing heroes. Our mission is for these stories to provide hope and inspiration to people experiencing life challenges, and to also educate the broader community on how best to provide support. If you would like to help us to continue to produce more hero stories and cover more adversity themes, we would welcome all donations. These can be made via our website, kintsugiheroes.com.au. The donate function is at the bottom of the homepage. We'd also welcome any feedback. You can email me direct using ian@kintsugiheroes.com.au. Now let's get back to the story.
My life now, very happy. I'm 75, like I said. I enjoy my golf. I enjoy socialising with friends. I don't see my sister sadly, so I concentrate on the family that I've got. Not my natural family, but in my wonderful family. I'm still on the national committee of my 5RR association. In matter of fact, I've got a Zoom meeting on Tuesday next week. Yeah, for that. And I'm going to, in the 2nd of April, I'm going to Warhope in northern New South Wales for an army reunion with my company and my union, Delta Company. And we're staying at Port Macquarie, so I'm seeing lots of friends there. About 40 odd guys are going, so that's great. We've lost probably a lot, you know. And I have from boarding school, and my next best group of friends are from boarding school, of course, because I spent 3 years there in Goulburn, cold in winter, freezing in winter, hot in summer. But you make great friends there too, and we see each other regularly in what's called the Sydney chapter. And everybody that I know that's still alive comes to Sydney in December for Christmas function. That's great. So there's 2 groups in the group. I've already got 3 groups in my life: family, army, school. And that's where you go. It's great. I live in a townhouse at Asquith, which I was the chairman of the Strata Plan for a while. I gave that up as well, so I'm still on the committee. It's a great place to live. We're the old folks, so they look after us well. The people next door, lovely Indian family, they bring meals to us occasionally. We have, with the other people around in their 40s and 30s and some even 50s, we have drinks in the driveway on Saturdays and things like that. You know, we have Christmas functions in the driveway. We have Halloween in the driveway. We have all those sort of things. Easter in the driveway. You know, so it's a great little community place here at Asquith. And I'm so happy that these young guys think a lot of us enough to participate with us in what we do, you know, and enjoy our company. So we tend to leave earlier than they do, of course. So that's what we do. And Lee plays everyone bowls twice a week. I play bowls. I was on the board of a bowling club for a couple of years as well, but I gave that up last year because I'm not a bowler. My interest wasn't there. They wanted me on to fill a casual vacancy, trying to convince me to become treasurer. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm treasurer of my golf club. That's enough. You know, they don't get paid for that either. So, you know, so that's where we go. And that's life. And enjoy it. The grandkids, well, Sarah's 27 this year. She's got a partner, Ignatius, in Spanish, and they bought a unit together at Lane Cove a couple of years ago. Charlotte turns 25 next Thursday, and Georgia turns 20 in November. And Sarah, the oldest, she's got a degree and a master's in physiotherapy. Georgia's got a degree in business, and Charlotte's doing a university at UTS for nursing. So our family, we've got nursing, physiotherapist, and Charlotte's boyfriend James, he's doing paramedic. So we've got a paramedic, a physiotherapist, a potential nurse, and my son-in-law's brother is a theatre nurse at Royal North Shore Hospital. So we've got all the medicals covered for our family. But hopefully, whenever it gets down to you know, to health-wise, we're looked after by the family. So it's a lovely thing to have. So that's about my life at the moment, I think. You know, I'm in a good place, reasonably good place. I have moments still where I think about you can't ever get war out of your system. As like I say, I tell the kids when I speak to them, the war's no good. So you've got to try and prevent war as best you can in the world. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? Just look at Ukraine. You know, it's one of those places. You get people like that. Great people die. Horrible people like that in the future don't. So you've got to think about those kind of things. That's what I tell the people. I was giving a speech a couple of years ago at Hornsby Heights Public School. I spoke to the whole school, and then they asked me to go and speak in Year 4, and I spoke to Year 4. And one of the kids, one of the boys, probably about Year 4, that's probably about 9 or 10 or something, I think it is, 8 or 9 maybe. He said, Mr. James, he said, what kind of gun did you have? I said, oh, you probably wouldn't know, it was a black one. He said, oh, was it an M16? I said, oh, yeah, you know, don't you, you know? They know. And then walking out the gate, there's a young kid, he's probably about 5 or 6, just in basic primary school. He looked up at me and he said, Mr. James, I think you must have served in the army with my great-great-grandfather. And I thought, oh, God, no. Potentially your great-grandfather. So perceptions of age is what the kids are. I love speaking to schools like that. You know, it's great. And I do that still regularly, even though not as much as I used to because I'm not president of the RSL anymore. I left that to somebody else now. I did my bit. And, but I still like speaking to schools and social community organisations. Sometimes you can't even shut me up.
Terry, you've got a lot of... It is a great story. Thank you so much. I have to say, you're pretty much the same age as my father.
Yeah. It doesn't make me feel so old.
No, it's okay. He's sprightly and young, just like you. He was conscripted into the army, just like you. He must have got the letter in the post. He did his time, but he didn't go over to Vietnam. So he got stationed at home. He was one of the admin staff, but I can't remember why that was. I'm intrigued to go and ask him how he got that position.
I feel a bit, to a certain degree, I feel a bit sorry for guys like your father because you get 2 years into the army and you don't achieve a lot. You don't get a lot out of it kind of thing, you know. I'm not saying fighting wars a lot, but you certainly get, if you survive a war, you get certain benefits. Yeah, that your father might not get, you know, but I guess he was out of harm's way all the time, wasn't he, you know, which is good. But he did his bit for the country, and that's fabulous. You know, that's all you can ask for.
I can't say I've ever spoken to someone apart from my great uncle who's been in a war. So I'm really privileged. I feel privileged today to speak with you about this. Described your story really beautifully, quickly, and I know that there's a lot of detail there, and I also accept that it was 53 years ago. And you've got, it fascinates me, the human mind, body, emotions, and how when you were in that village, you have no recollection of it. I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, when you were in combat, going door to door, can you remember, were the locals still there? The people that lived in the houses, were they all there still?
We had to evacuate most of them, but they also had cellars. A lot of them went into their cellars. And so it was house-to-house fighting, and you had to take into account you couldn't tell who the enemy was all the time. When you're talking about BC especially. NVA, regular North Vietnamese Army people had uniforms on. BC didn't. So you just couldn't always tell who was who. And we had a task force based down at a place called Bung Tau on the coast. And that's where the task force headquarters was. I was based at Newey Dad further inland. But down at Bung Tau, they had what's called the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Pool. I think you can guess why the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Pool was named, because Harold wasn't very good in the water. And we used to go down there once every, we had 72 hours regularly. It goes, I don't know if you know the song, I was only 19. But in that, there's some verse saying 32 hours, 36 hour regularly in Bung Tau. Right, so that was it. So you go down there maybe twice during the time I was there, lucky enough. We had the swimming pool there, and the local Vietnamese were cleaning it. And there were cleaners everywhere, kind of thing, basically. But one night on an ambush, we killed some VC, and so one of those VC was on a swimming pool attendant. So you just can't tell who's friend and who's foe in those circumstances. A bit like the young guys in Afghanistan faced over recent years, also Afghanistan and Iraq, but certainly like that. And that's what I said to Ben Robert Smith, please, just be proud of what you've done, no matter what they say. You can't fight or win a war against terrorists and insurgents by fighting cleanly. And I wouldn't like to tell you what we had to do. I just won't tell anybody that. My family knows nothing, basically. We talk amongst ourselves. Yeah, you just don't know who the enemy is in those circumstances.
Yeah, it's pretty big. For all of us that have never been a part of a war, all we can do is imagine. We have movies, books, we have stories. Hopefully everyone listening to this story is just grateful for the presence that you had over there, you and your battalion and your unit, what you did, the bravery. And it sounded like you knew you were there. You were Tiger. You were there on behalf of Australia. You were there. You had a mission to complete, and you did it with bravery, and you did your body also, your mind shutting things out, did what it needed to cope.
We were younger too. I came home at 65 kilos. Now I'm 84 or something. So we were young and fit and healthy kind of thing. Our brains might have been a bit addled when we got back for a while. So eventually, it wore away, but not completely. Never does. It never will for anybody who's caught in the war. And that's what you tell the kids.
Yeah, I was going to ask, when you've caught up with your other war veterans, do they also have the nightmares and the flashbacks? And
I've never met anybody who doesn't, to be honest. They have issues. Yeah. Agent Orange was a big issue at one stage, but I don't know many people who were affected by Agent Orange. I know most who were affected by PTSD like I was, because I had that guilt survivor complex when my friend got killed instead of me. And I guess we did kill people. But the first one you do is he thinks, I've killed somebody. It's not right. And with hindsight, wonderful hindsight, I believe. We should not have been in Vietnam, but it was a time. There was the mentality of the world at the time. Stop the yellow horse from coming south, support our allies, the Americans, who've been asked to help the South Vietnamese. It carries on like that, right? In hindsight, we shouldn't have been there, in reflection. Nobody should have been there. It's their country. Let them fight it out amongst themselves. But look at the war going on today. Same thing, basically.
Indeed. And I think your perspective and experience is so welcome, but also wise. And you were saying about you like the way that your neighbours are all different ages except you and your wife, Lynn, and how you get together and have the drinks and all of that. Of course, you've lived so many more years beyond us, and you radiate this warmth and this joy. Good on you for being so open to life, and you've got these beautiful people around you. And I love how you've given back to your community year after year after year, decade after decade, and constantly served and continued to serve.
Yeah, I've done a lot in the community since then. Yeah, I have done a lot. Yeah, but I'm cutting back a little bit now because I've been treasuring my golf club for a long time. I've been on the board of the bowling club for a while. And I've been here and been there, kind of thing. So yeah, I've done a lot over the time. But two of the most important things to me are my youngest granddaughter in Sydney, Charlotte, who just is 19 now. When she was 10 or something like that, I think it was, she asked me to speak at her primary school for Anzac Day, which I did. She wrote a note about my situation, and she said, my pop served in the army, he was in Vietnam, blah, 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 blah. But the most thing about the bottom, she said, I love him because he gives time to me all the time. And that's the most important thing from my point of view, you know. And actually chill down the sky with the grandkids, you know. Even though they're not my natural grandchildren, they are my grandchildren. And they love me like that. They love me, you know. And we're trying to say to the girls, come on, girls, we want great-grandchildren, come on, you know. And my daughter says, we want grandchildren as well, Dad. My son-in-law calls me Papa, and he's 56, you know.
That's beautiful. See, you are. The blood thing doesn't matter. Just like you've got those groups of friends from the army, from school.
Yeah, it's in the heart. Yeah, that's right. And I've got, you know, like I said, we've got 3 families. Family 1, family at home, family 2, army, and family 3, boarding school, which is great. You know, we see each other a lot.
Thank you. I just want to wrap up and ask you, I ask everybody this, and hopefully this still resonates with you and your story, and that is, if there's anyone listening to this now who resonates, or maybe who's not heard or realised what it took for our soldiers to go to war, or maybe there's someone else who has been a soldier at war who's listening to this, is there anything you'd like to say to them right now?
Duty done. Duty done, you know, to the regiment. That's about it, really. I mean, you can't say much more than that. Yeah. I was fortunate. I never got wounded. Came close very many times, came close to dying many times, but I was fortunate. So, you know, I've got health issues here, there and everywhere, but I don't complain because that's life. You know, a lot of people are a lot worse off than me. I see the floods in New South Wales, the floods overseas, the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, and I think, God, how lucky am I? You know, ever since I got home from war, day one, I've been thankful. Can't say more than that.
That's a beautiful way to be. Thank you, Terry. It's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Evelyn, wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Please like and share the show to your friends so we can get this out to even more people. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please reach out using the contact details below. And join us next week for our next hero's story. Until then, keep being you, and remember that we are all heroes in our own unique way.
Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. When it hits you in the middle of the night and the truth burns so bright. Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. Take pride in those cries. It's only for tonight, and then you rise. Only when you're broken. Only when you're broken. Only when you're broken.